Hey, it's Sparky, Fifer, 1250 AM, The Fan, beautiful Milwaukee, Wisconsin. Well, actually, I'm recording this. There's some thunderstorms going on outside, but usually it's pretty beautiful. Follow me on Twitter at Sparky Radio. Could check out the Potawatomi Sportsbook Probes post-game show after each and every Milwaukee Bucks game throughout the playoffs on 1250 AM, The Fan. If you miss it, you can also stream it on your Odyssey app or go to 1250amthefan.com. He is Nathan Marzion. Oh, I've been waiting to talk to Nathan Marzion. It's been a minute, and there's a lot to talk about, obviously. With what's going on with the Milwaukee Bucks. They draw the Indiana Pacers. The last two post-game shows I missed. I was at a state bowling tournament in Wausau, Nathan Marzion, for my 8-year-old Jackson. Want to hear a quick story about what happened over the weekend real quick?
Yeah.
Yeah. So bought a used minivan a couple of weeks ago. Drove down to Elgin, Illinois, right, to get this used minivan. Elgin Kia. Went down there, got the minivan. 2013. And I was very happy with it. It's got a TV screen that comes down in it, right? The whole deal. So Jack's got to play on his PS4, driving to Wausau and then driving back. We're coming down Highway 39, right? Like the interstate, going like 70 miles an hour, whatever it was, coming down. There's a car to the slow lane. I'm in the middle lane. We're in Stevens Point in that area, driving past Stevens Point. And all of a sudden, whoa! The deer slams into the side of the minivan. Now, upon looking at it, it appears that the car that was in the slow lane must have hit said deer, because it appears that the whole side of one side of the deer slammed into the side of the minivan. So he must have hit the deer coming out from wherever the deer came from in the slow lane. The deer must have spun and then hit the side of the minivan and slammed the side of the minivan. So I've been going through this whole deal of insurance, body shop, and all that fun stuff for the last couple of days. And I am about ready for that to be all over with. Let me tell you, I've had my fill, and that sucked. I've never, ever had a deer hit a vehicle that I've driven, ever. You, Marzion? I mean, you're young. I can't imagine you've ever had a deer hit you or you hit the deer.
No, I have not. It is, it's a sign though. It's Bucks season. It's playoff season.
Yeah, I don't know. Hey, if you could turn yourself up over there, so you're a little soft on your side of the world.
Is this better? Is it better?
That's a little bit better. Yeah, that's fine. But either way, yeah, so that sucked. That really did. And you know what? I hadn't thought about the Bucks element. So I really hope that it's not a sign of the Bucks crashing out of the first round against the Indiana Pacers. I hope that's not what the sign was, Marzion, that you're referring to, that it's Bucks season. Because you want the Buck to be alive, right? Not smashing against the side of a vehicle. I mean, yes. That's not a good sign. If we're going to say that's a sign, that's not a good sign for this Bucks team. Either way, they lose the last two games of the playoffs. So Toby Altizer filled in for me from DC. Can I ask somebody a question here? Like, I understand seeding isn't everything, and Giannis will always say, "Oh, we want a championship from the 3 seed. Who cares about seeding?" Da, 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 da. But Indiana, you were okay playing Indiana. You are okay playing Indiana in the first round versus playing somebody from the play-in. I mean, I don't know. Like I was pretty surprised that they lost both of those basketball games against OKC and Orlando. Again, no Giannis. I understand that. Damian Lillard was absolutely trash from the field on Sunday. That cannot happen in the playoffs, and not against Indiana. But with Giannis, they're saying it's questionable of whether or not he's going to play to start this series. Eric Name of The Athletic joined me on Wisconsin Sports Daily weekday afternoons from 2 to 5. And he said that you kind of got to think about what happened to Kevin Durant. That has to be in your mind, that if you bring him back too soon, he could possibly blow out his Achilles. If he blows out his Achilles, not only is he gone for this playoffs, he's gone for all of next year and probably the start of the following year. So that's a lot of time to lose over trying to win a series against the Indiana Pacers, in which a season has been absolutely riddled with drama from the very, very start of the season. We've had drama all the way through. Things have not gone right all year long. And maybe it's a sign, don't know. The question is, how would you handle Giannis in this Pacers series? As far as when would you let him play? Would you let him play? Would you sit him out the series? How would you go about this, Nathan?
Yeah, I mean, you got to be cautious about it. You've got to be smart and not let, your desire to win this series completely overtake everything else and rush him back. Now, again, I kind of said earlier, I was like, I trust that whatever happens, they're going to be smart about that. They've never been a team to rush their guys back too much and force them to play. Um, when they're not ready to play, maybe, or when they're still not 100%. Like they play it cautious. They play the long term game, and um, I just think that at a certain point, yes, he will be ready, and I think at that point they'll play him a few games in. But if he's not 100% or close to like right close to 100% for game one, he'll sit out game one. He might sit out game two. He might sit out half the series. He might sit out the whole series. I don't think that's the case, but maybe. Again, I just trust that whatever they're gonna do will be smart. If he plays, I think it'll be them trusting that he is okay, he is fully healthy, and he's totally okay to be out there. And if he doesn't play, I think it'll be okay. He clearly wasn't. He clearly wasn't able to get to a position where they were comfortable playing him. So, um, I trust that they'll be smart about it because they know how important that dude is to everything that goes
Boy,
on, not just this season.
that logic is really easy if we're talking about somebody else. I mean, I would get down with you, right? If this is a Brooke Lopez injury, I get down with you. If this is a Chris Middleton injury, I'm there with you. And yes, you want them to be smart. I agree. But this is going to be a heck of a lot different with Giannis, who is, let's say he's 75% and the Bucks are down 2-0. You don't think he's going to be yelling and screaming and carrying on about how you need me? I got to get back out there. We're going to lose this series. I don't care if I'm not 100%. I got to go help my team. And then you got to fight with him to try and keep him on the bench. I'm sorry. I mean, you get taught when you're growing up as a child about peer pressure. Well, there's about to be Giannis pressure on this training staff if they don't let him play and he feels like he's good enough to go out there and help this basketball team. Best case scenario is they're tied 1-1 through 2. You get to go to Indiana. Hopefully you win the first one. You're up 2-1. You can still hold them. I mean, that's, to me, I slow play him. I'm just like, Giannis, if we need you, we'll talk. Otherwise, we're going to continue to rehab and get you better. And if we need you, that's fine. If we don't, we're going to try and keep you to the next series. And you slow play him. Now, again, you're down 2-0, and he's, close to 100%, you think, and he says he's close to 100%, and you want to try that? Fine. No problem. Go ahead. But just understand the roll of the dice here is a gigantic one. If that thing blows, and then later we find out that he really wasn't 100%, but he wanted to get out there and play, and they succumbed to the pressure, and away we go. And now all of next season is a complete loss. That is a big, big risk to take in a season in which not much has gone right for this Bucks team.
Yeah, I agree about slow playing him. I don't think you're trying to rush him back or anything. I think, and yeah, play it by ear. If you can split those first two and he's still not 100%, okay, we can afford to still sit you game 3. Going down 2-1's not the end of the world. But like you said, if you're down 2-0 and he's close to 100%, if he's 95%, then you have a real discussion about it. If he's only 70-75, I don't think there's really a discussion. You're saying, I'm not letting you play at 70%. I just, it's not worth it, and if you're already down 2-0, it's looking like, okay, this team doesn't seem ready to win a title anyways. So like, again, we're going to sit you. We're just going to play it safe if you're not close to 100%. But it all comes down to how close he is. And that's the thing, is none of us know that. None of us know how close he is to 100%. And none of us are with him every day during the rehab process, knowing exactly how he's feeling. So I don't know. I've always felt this way with injuries, where like, I try not to speculate too much on it. I try not to judge the decisions that they're making because they know more than us. And it's like, yes, they can still make the wrong decision, but I'm not going to sit here and say, oh my gosh, if all of a sudden it comes out that, hey, he's ready for game 1, he's playing, I'm not going to be like, what are they doing? Oh, what? Like, to me, that says, okay, he's clearly ready. He's clearly okay. He healed up a lot faster than they expected, and he's ready. I'm not going to be sitting there all worried that they're risking his entire career.
Well, remember now, this is the same team that Doc Rivers, already in a post-game press conference this year, said that Giannis didn't look right to him. Asked them. They said, oh, no, he's good. Second time, asked him. No, he looks good. Game got done, and Doc's like, I have eyes too. I should have pulled him and not let him play. He didn't look right to me the whole game. Now, to me, if that's that coach trusting his medical staff, this doesn't come up in the post game. He just trusts his guys and you move on. That's Doc Rivers, head coach, saying, yeah, they say he's okay, but he clearly wasn't okay. And I should have pulled him when I thought. So if Doc is already questioning what they think and what they see versus what he sees, to me, that's what it's going to happen. It's going to have to be Doc and Giannis, closed door, and Doc's going to have to just lay the law down if he wants to play and they don't want to let him. Because there's no sense to have the training staff going back and forth with this dude, none whatsoever. So just have Doc in the middle of it and have that conversation. I am very, very nervous about this. Just being straight, right? I'm very, very nervous if this dude comes back in game 1 and they're like, oh, he's good, we're good. And Nathan's like, yes, he's good. And then pop goes the weasel and he's gone for a year and a half. And then what is it going to be? Oh, well, the Bucks thought he was good. I mean, I didn't know. You don't know if he's good or not. It's just really just a guessing game, because that is going to be a huge deal. I mean, that changes the offseason outlook. That changes how Damian Lillard probably feels about next year, kind of going forward and into the following year with him coming off an Achilles. I mean, there's a lot of stuff that comes off of if he gets hurt in this series and is gone for all of next year. It's not just about now. This is everything. This is ticket sales going forward for this franchise, group sales going forward for this franchise for all of next season. Because if you know before tickets even go on sale that he ain't playing all year, that's a huge loss. And now, again, for us people that don't want to pay full price for stuff, it's great for us because you can go watch Damian Lillard probably for a couple bucks a ticket next year if Giannis isn't there. But I mean, from the perspective of the organization, that would be a gigantic loss financially for them next year, on top of just losing this series in the playoffs.
Which is why they're going to be smart about it. That's why they're not going to rush him back. They're not going to, if he's playing, it will be because he's either 100% or close enough to 100% that they say, if you're 98% and it's a playoffs, I am willing to take. I don't care. It's the playoffs. Not everyone's going to play at 100%. If it happens to hit that 2%, that sucks and that's unlucky and that's whatever. But there's a chance every time you go out on the court that you could get a career-ending injury, that you could get a career-altering injury. Like, there has to be some level of like, okay, this is good enough that we are comfortable with you out there, that it's not going to be re-aggravated or that it's not going to cause a huge issue. And if it happens to, whatever. But again, I trust that the decision that they make will be based on the medical team, the people that are with him every day, giving them the okay, like, hey, he is good enough, again, 95 plus, whatever the number is that they determine is comfortable enough for them. And like you mentioned, Doc Rivers, I don't really care what Doc Rivers thinks about it because he's not the one involved with it. And he says that all the time where he's like, I don't like his, he gets asked, oh, how is, Chris Middleton coming along? How's Dame doing? And it's like, he's like, I don't really know. I'm not with them I practice and I see them, how they look in practice, but like, I'm not in the medical room with them. I'm not the one that's testing them and doing all that stuff. So he's like, I don't really know.
That's
I don't
a
know
lie.
As good as the medical team.
Nathan, that's a lie.
It's true.
Don't know it's not. No,
the coach is not.
Nathan.
The coach does not know a player's medical status more
Nathan,
than the medical team does.
Nathan.
That's not true.
Nathan.
You can't tell me that's true.
It is true. Nathan.
No, it's not.
Yes, it is. The medical.
The coach does not know the medical status before the medical team does.
Nathan, the medical staff every day, sometimes several times a day, will update the head coach on medical situations of different guys. Hey, just so you know, Middleton's in there right now. This, and this. Lillard's in there right now getting taped up. He's got this, and this an issue. This guy. And they go through the entire roster before every game and after every game of what happened and what's going on. Now, Doc is not going to come out there and say what he knows. He's simply going to avoid the question and say, hey, man, I don't know. That's the medical team thing. I can't, I don't know. I'm not going to talk about it. That's how this goes. This is how it goes in every sport most of the time.
But my point is this. If you mentioned a game where the medical team was saying Giannis was okay, Doc said, oh, I have eyes, I should have.
Oh, right. Yeah.
The medical team at that point knows better than Doc. Doc can say whatever he wants with his eyes. If the medical team is saying he is okay to be playing right now, even if he looks a little gimpy, you can look gimpy and still be good enough to play. You can look a little off and still be good enough to play. And they're saying we're comfortable with him out there. So I'm not going to listen to what Doc Rivers just says based on his eye test.
But Nathan, the problem is you keep saying good enough. But no, if you're not ready and able to go, that could lead to a hamstring, that could lead to the calf strain, whatever. You could there's warning signs.
Good enough to me means that stuff is so limited that it's very, very unlikely. And if it hits, that's bad luck. Good enough. I'm not saying good enough as in oh, well, he can walk, he can run, we're playing him. No, I'm talking about good enough as in the medical team is saying he's 95%. That's good enough to us. That's good enough for us to play him in a playoff series if he's 95%. And it might be higher than that, it might be lower than that. But all I'm saying is good enough means the risk is limited enough that you're comfortable playing him. And that doesn't have to mean he's 100%. To me, it's not either Giannis is 100% or he's not playing. Because again, I think almost every player in the playoffs is playing not at 100%. You've played the whole season. Everyone's got a little bit of nagging issues. But if you're at 90, if you get to 95%, 98%, and they're saying there's a 2% chance of him,
He's not playing.
getting a more serious injury, I'm playing it.
Yeah,
It's
I'm
the
not.
playoffs. This is
No,
the NBA
that
playoffs.
calf has to be 100% or he's not playing. That's where I'm at. So that's where we differ. Because I'm a scaredy cat. Like I'll be straight up honest with you. I'm a scaredy cat. Like in the National Football League, I don't want a starting wide receiver returning punts because that just leaves them open for injuries or returning kicks.
Well, but
I don't want a starting quarterback
that's unnecessary.
Returning punts, right?
That's
because
unnecessary. Whereas it's not like
when I did the big show, Gary Leroy called me a scaredy cat. Oh, it's fine. It's part of the game. Deion went back there, blah, 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 blah. So they called me a scaredy cat for not wanting that. In this case here, I'm not sacrificing all of next year when I look at this team right now and go, okay, so let's say he comes back. Like, do we think they're going to go win a title with this team considering everything we've seen so far? Probably not at the end of the day. So for me, I want him 100% because if he comes back and something goes wrong, you're going to say, that's just bad luck. Fine. I'm not. I'm going to be pissed because there's no need to risk him in this series unless you absolutely think that he's 100% and he can play, because it is not worth sacrificing next season. It's not worth having him go out, not play next season, and possibly, but I don't know if this will happen,
again,
Damian Lillard going, dude, I don't know, man. Now I'm here. The first year I had coaches switched on me. My favorite coach, essentially Terry Stotts, we think, he walked out. Now year 2, I'm here in Milwaukee, and the guy I came here to play with is out for an Achilles injury. And now I don't have him this year. I'm not going to have him from probably the beginning of part of next year either, possibly, because when the injury happens, that's a huge problem.
But this is all just a big leap based on what I'm saying is I'm not saying risk him if he's 60-40. No, I'm not risking it like that. I'm saying if there's a 95% chance, 98% chance, taking that and saying, oh, well, you're risking his entire career. No, you're not. 2%, I'm not considering that risky enough that I'm really like putting this guy in danger. And I'm just throwing numbers out there,
right,
whatever they determine. If it's a number comfortable enough that I'm like, this is the NBA playoffs. This is a year with Giannis and Dame that you just don't know how many of these you're going to get. I'm playing the dude in a playoff series in the middle of his prime to try to go win a title. I'm not punting on the year just to save the 1 to 2% that he gets a little bit more hurt. Because again, there's always a 1 to 2% chance when you go out there that you could suffer some crazy freak injury. Like that's part of playing the game. I'm not saying to risk, make some huge risk. If it came out that Giannis was playing at 70% and he got an Achilles injury, then I'd be really upset. I'd be like that you shouldn't play him at 70%. That's way too big of a risk. But again, if he's playing, I'm assuming he's good enough that he's at a number that's very small enough that they're like, if that does happen, it wasn't a huge risk. If it happens, it happens, but we're not putting him out there at a huge risk. And so that's why I'm saying, like, I don't think it's right to take what I'm deeming as a number as 2% and saying, well, you're risking him getting hurt all of next year and Dame's gonna leave and all. It's like, no, you're not. You're putting him out there at 98%. Like that's good enough to me.
He is Nathan Marzion. Follow him on Twitter at Nathan Marzion. Follow me at Sparky Radio. Check out Wisconsin Sports Daily weekday afternoons from 2 until 5 p.m. Invite the calls, invite the tweets. Talk Packers, Brewers, and Bucks every single day. You'll get your favorite team, at least one segment of those 3 teams. Now, some days more than others will be more. Like the first couple of shows, we did more Bucks. Maybe then we have Packers and Brewers, but we still fit in Brewers and Packers topics for a segment here or there through interviews or whatever the case may be. And that's how it'll be kind of every day going forward on The Fan between 2 and 5 o'clock. Take a quick time out. Let's talk a little bit more and generically about this series and how Nathan analyzes this series, kind of going into this thing, knowing what we just talked about now with Giannis and the things that maybe the Bucks kind of need to focus on. That's up next. Green and Growing. Download it on your Odyssey app or if you download your favorite podcast app. Check us out on the Odyssey Sports YouTube page as well. Welcome back to Green and Growing. Steve Sparky Fifer of 1250 AM The Fan, Potawatomi Sportsbook. Pros post-game show served up by Wendy's after each and every Milwaukee Bucks game. Next post-game show coming up Sunday after Bucks and Pacers. He has Nathan Marzion. Follow him at Nathan Marzion. Looking at Bucks and Pacers, 3-6 matchup. Again, like I said, game one coming up on Sunday. I think for me, to start, as we look at this series, I think transition defense is going to be a big factor in this thing for the Milwaukee Bucks, Nathan.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, that's one of the things that the players have talked about about those matchups is right away they're just like, we know that team likes to get out and run. We know that they're a young team, a fast team, high paced, high powered offense. Um, the positive is in the playoffs it's harder to play that type of game. The game slows down typically, and you are forced into more of a half court type of game. Um, but the Bucks still are going to have to be very alert. And playing them 5 times helps. And I think just having a whole week now to prepare. It's not like the regular season. I mean, I've mentioned this several times where the playoffs are a whole different beast. Where you're prepping for the same team for 2.5 weeks in a row. It's not, oh, well, the Pacers are in town. We have one day and we're quickly prepping for them and then we play them and it's done. No, like this is a totally different thing. I think the Bucks will be more ready to face that, and the intensity of a playoff series will make them more alert, getting back on defense, all that stuff. Like in the regular season, I just think there are times you're just going to fall asleep a little bit more. You're not going to always be making sure you get back, and it's easier for those young teams to really pounce on you. I just think it is a little bit of an advantage for the Bucks now, as far as that whole play style thing with, or at least it's not as much of an advantage for the Pacers, I should say, in the playoffs because of how the game should probably be playing more slower paced.
I think the other part of this series, regardless if Giannis plays or not, probably more pressure if he doesn't play, is going to be the play of Damian Lillard. I think that is going to be a spotlight in this series. We talked about the other day, Wisconsin Sports Daily, who's got the most pressure on him going into this series. Because somebody had said Doc Rivers, and me and a bunch of callers all said it's probably Damian Lillard at this point. And maybe more pressure next year than this year because he's been through the ringer this year. So, if it doesn't work out this year, I don't think I'm going to be all that surprised or all that irritated because it hasn't been the best of years for him, anyways, on and off the court with all the drama going on to him in both fashions. But he has to play really well. And if Giannis doesn't play, you may think this is a crazy number. I think he's got to average almost 30 a night in order for this team to advance. And that's a gigantic number, y'all. I mean, that is a big ask for anybody to average 30 points in a playoff series when defenses tighten up. The games are called a little bit differently by the referees. That's a big ask. But that, I think, is the ask if Giannis can't play.
Yeah, yeah. Without Giannis, it definitely, you're needing him to play like a number one option, and a number one option on a playoff team that advances usually averages around 30. And the good news is, Dame has played well in most games without Giannis this season. I think he's averaging about 29. He's had a couple big games without him. There was he had 41 against the Clippers. He had, I don't remember what it was, 35 against the Suns. Led that to some nice wins. So he's shown he can do it, and he obviously has the experience. Like, this is what a big advantage. I tweeted today. I think the Bucks are in a much better position if Giannis misses a couple games to start this series than they were last year, where he gets hurt unexpectedly in the middle of game one, and all of a sudden you don't really have time to prep for it. It's just like, okay, all these guys are now bumped up a notch, and Chris Middleton's your number one, Drew's now your number two, and you're just kind of like, all of a sudden you've got to play 2.5 games without your star player. You now have, they already had a week and a half or whatever it's been, with Giannis out, and you now have the whole week to prepare for him possibly being out. And the guy that you traded for, this your number two, is used to being a number one, which is a huge advantage. Again, the guys we were used to have as number one when Giannis went down, which were Chris and Drew, those guys aren't number one options. Like, those guys have never been that. They aren't supposed to be that. It's just like they're not meant to be giving you 30 a game. Whereas Dame has shown you he can do that. Dame has a lot of experience doing that. So you just feel more confident, like at least they have the potential to still win this series without Giannis and really, hang around and tread water while he's gone. So yeah, it's a huge series for Dame. And I mean, I do expect him to put up some good numbers. I expect him to play pretty well. Doesn't mean he's going to be perfect or play every game super well, but I just think it'll be about Him getting those numbers, being assertive as we've seen in some games without Giannis, where he's a little bit more seems comfortable and assertive and driving more and stuff like that. I think the driving lanes sometimes open up when Giannis isn't there for him because Giannis isn't in the paint, and obviously when Giannis is in the paint, that can kind of clog things up a little bit for his driving. But um, yeah, I'm excited to see Dame, for the first couple games, see what he's got because he's going to come out with a lot of pressure on him, but he's been in that situation before and he has come through big time. So.
What about on the Pacers side of the ball? Is the biggest concern for you Tyrese Halliburton, or do you have bigger concerns about this Pacers offense going into this series?
It's the buck killer TJ McConnell. I'm half joking when I say that, but honestly, that is one thing that scares me is they just for whatever reason TJ McConnell always kills us. Halliburton is obviously he had the amazing first couple months of the year and that was all 5 games the Bucks played against them came in that first half, but then he did injure his hamstring and since then he has not been the same. He's shooting like 30% from 3 since the All-Star break and only averaging like 16 a game. So he just hasn't been the same type of player. I don't It's still a bad matchup for us, obviously, given our perimeter defense, and he's still a good player, but I'm not
And it's his
quite as
hometown team with family watching.
yeah, but I'm not I mean it could add pressure to it too. I'm
Could.
not quite as worried about him going completely crazy against us as I would have been, knowing how he played at the beginning of the year. Seeing how he's played since makes me think, okay, like he could have a good series, but I don't anticipate him putting up, and I mean this could end up being a bad take, but I don't expect him putting up 32 points, 15 assists, and just completely dominating the entire game. Um, they have a very high powered offense overall, and they're a different team than we saw earlier in the season. They made the Siakam trade, got rid of Bruce Brown, got rid of Buddy Hield, a couple, shooter type of offensive players, and now they have Siakam, a big guy. So that's an interesting thing because that at least gives them a little bit more size down low that they didn't have before, which the Bucks might have to match. They might have to start Bobby now to match Siakam and Miles Turner with Bobby and Brook. So yeah, there's plenty of good matchups, and I mean, I'm not quite as worried about Halliburton. I know people will be because they think about his start of the year, but he really again he hasn't been quite the same since. And one thing about going back to Dame really quick, this series, I know you mentioned expecting 30 is a lot in a playoff series given the intensity ramps up and all that, but it is worth noting. I mean, I know we talk about the Bucks defense and stuff. This Pacers defense is very bad, and it's been bad all season. And so this is a matchup where, Dame or other guys could really step up. Chris could really step up, and it's not like they have a ton of lockdown defenders that you're totally worried about shutting down Dame and Chris and these guys. And obviously, when Giannis plays, he was absolutely dominating every time he played the Pacers. So this is a matchup where like I could see Dame having a great series, and I could see Dame truthfully like I mean this is a best case scenario outcome, but I mean I could see Dame averaging over 30 points and really just going off for a few games while Giannis is out. Given that it's one of the it's the worst defensive team in the playoffs. So
All right, let's take a quick time out. Come back on the other side. I want to talk about the national media narrative and kind of what this feels like to you as a Bucks fan, as everybody is talking about this Bucks team heading into this series against the Pacers. Don't forget, download the Green and Growing podcast right there on your Odyssey app, wherever you download your favorite podcast app, whether it be Apple, whether that be Spotify, whatever, Google Podcasts. Nathan Marzion there. And of course, you can check us out on the Odyssey Sports YouTube page. Back after this. Hey, it's Steve Sparky, Fifer, 1250 AM, The Fan, host of the Potawatomi Sportsbook Pro Hoops post-game show, served up by Wendy's after each and every Milwaukee Bucks game. Next game coming up on Sunday, Bucks and Pacers in the playoffs. Game 1 in that series at Fiserv Forum. He is Nathan Marzion. Follow him on Twitter at Nathan Marzion. The question now becomes this: do you feel like the national media is kind of against the Bucks at this point? I talked about it on Wisconsin Sports Daily, which you can hear weekday afternoons from 2 to 5 on 1250 AM The Fan. I talked about it the other day. In fact, it was the first show on Monday. Stephen A. Smith coming out, picking the Pacers to beat the Bucks, saying the Bucks then should trade Damian Lillard. You owe it to Lillard, whatever. Get rid of Damian Lillard. Then I see Kendrick Perkins come out on social media, give his top 5 vote getters, because he gets a vote apparently, I think, possibly, according to him, for All Pro, MVP, whatever it was, and Giannis wasn't in his top 5. I mean, seriously. So again, for me now, again, these are both ESPN dudes, right? Perkins has hated on the Bucks for a long time. That's not surprising. Stephen A. don't want to be in Milwaukee, don't want to come to Milwaukee, so he wants anybody but Milwaukee to advance, so he doesn't have to come here. That's been well known, and he wasn't shy in talking about his dislike for Milwaukee or whatever, not wanting to be here. It's too cold, and and it's like June, and you're come on. Okay, so to me, I do kind of feel like it's kind of up against the Bucks. And you have that aspect, and then you have those people that don't like Doc, that don't trust Doc in the playoffs, and bring up how bad he is in the playoffs. So you have the people that are just anti-Bucks in general, and then you have those people that are anti-Doc Rivers in general. And between all of them nationally, like, do we have a guy that's pro Milwaukee in the national media right now that is sticking up for the Bucks? Because if we have one, I don't know who the heck it is. I couldn't tell you. I've not heard that person yet. Maybe it's a podcast that I'm missing, but I have not heard that person yet be pro Bucks.
Yeah, I mean it's been brutal at least the last couple of days, and right now, or at least these past couple of days have been a little bit of like, it almost feels like they're trying to figure out what to talk about because the playoffs don't start for so long. I know there's the playing games and stuff, but it's like they're kind of trying to fill it with like, okay, what's the juiciest narrative we can come up with going into the playoffs? What teams can we put in a microscope and get people to really talk about? And the Bucks are an easy target right now. I mean, they're obviously the small market, which puts a lot of national media against them to begin with. They, the whole Giannis, when is he going to want to leave thing has been going on for so long, even though he continuously signs extensions. They made the Dame trade, which now people are like, is that, was that a mistake? And should they now trade Dame? You mentioned Doc Rivers. Like, there's just a lot of drama and a lot of stuff to talk about with the Bucks. I don't even want to say, I don't want to say drama because drama to me insists that like there's friction between the players and like there's everyone's unhappy. I don't really want to put it that way, but just there's a lot to talk about with the Bucks, and there's a lot of negative spin you can put on a bunch of different things. So I think they're an easy target right now, and it's something you just kind of have to deal with. Is like, okay, we disappointed a little in the regular season, so naturally there's going to be a lot of what if they lose in the first round? Oh my gosh, is Giannis going to ask out? Was the Dame trade a failure? Should they look to trade Dame? Why did they hire Doc Rivers? All that stuff. There's this team's had a lot of pressure on them all season, and it's not going to change in the playoffs. It's gonna ramp up even more. So at least they're used to it. They've had to go through this all season, and I think at the end of the day, it's like this was kind of similar to how things were going into 2021. I mean, they had a little bit of disappointing regular season, and there was the talk. I know Giannis had just signed the extension, but there was still that talk about, well, if they come up short again, that's now 3 years in a row. Is Giannis going to ask out? And was the Drew Holiday trade worth it? And all that stuff. And they were playing Miami in the first round, so it was okay. This is a bad matchup for them. I could see them getting bounced in the first round because they're playing Miami again, who they just lost to last year. Like, there's a lot of similarities to everything that everyone's saying this year. And I'm not going to act like it's the exact same situation or that things 100% will go the same way, but I mean, again, it's not like they haven't bounced back from this before and really shut people up. And I believe they can do that again. This to me is the real season. Like, this is when things really start. The whole regular season is like a giant preseason, and now you get to the real games. You find out what you're made of, and I think that again, I'm not saying it'll 100% happen, but I think there's a decent chance that the Bucks really turn this thing on. I think there's a decent chance that Dame turns it on, and this team can make some noise. Like, there's a legit argument that they could just be a sleeping giant right now, and a team that, okay, if they can get healthy, get everyone together, and Dame gets going a little bit, like, this team could beat anyone, and I think that's true. So yeah, I mean, there's just a lot of negative things you can talk about and negative spins you can put on this team right now, and of course, the national media is going to take those chances.
That'll do it for another edition of Green and Growing. He is Nathan Marzion. Follow him at Nathan Marzion. Follow me at Sparky Radio. We'll do this bad boy again coming up on Thursday. Enjoy the rest of your day. Have a good one. Toodles.